All right, we're going to do a little bit of math lesson today. I want to review telling time, and I want to talk to you today just about a little bit of our vocabulary that goes along with time before we do a little quick lesson here. So, up here on my little whiteboard that you can see, we have our cute little clock. This is from our classroom. I brought it home with me, and it has all of our wonderful pedals on it that tell us about some things. And we have a bunch of vocabulary words up here. And let's see. Let's get our camera to where we can see them. Here we go. The first one is o'clock. That's the very first vocabulary word that we learned when we learned how to tell time in kindergarten this year. O'clock means the 12. And we know, here's our big clock. When the long hand points to the 12, it says o'clock. That means it's also called hour. So that's the very first vocabulary word that we learned. The next thing is the word hands. Hands are these two things that move around the clock. I'm sure you remember these. This is my favorite clock. I use it every single day in our math lesson when we were reviewing time. These are pointed and they're red, and they have a little knob on it that I can hold and spin. This clock has pink hands and they're straight lines. This clock up here has black hands and they're very fancy pointed. And remember, in our classroom we have some Dr. Seuss clocks that their hands are kind of like, and they're all crooky and crooked because Dr. Seuss is silly, so his clocks are silly. Even though they look like arrows, they're called the hands of the clock, and they tell us what time it is. Every clock has two hands. Some clocks have three. Some clocks have three. This clock up here has three hands. My pink clock has three hands. You see that little skinny one right there? But this clock only has two because it's a teaching clock, and we're not worried about that third hand right now. Some of the clocks that you're going to see in your house, maybe on your stove, on your microwave, maybe on your coffee maker or some other appliances in your house, are going to be what we call digital, and they're just going to have the numbers that pop up. They're not going to look round like this. We've also talked about other kinds of clocks in our house that have this long little thing that hangs down and swings back and forth. Those are called, some of them are fancy and they're wooden and they're beautiful, and they're called grandfather clocks. And they're just really old. Is that why they're called grandfather clocks? Because grandfathers are old? Don't tell them. Let's go to the next one. Now, our vocabulary words are all listed here. I have one word that says minute. This means the minute hand. The minute hand is the big hand. This one moves a lot faster. It moves. It's bigger. It's longer. And it tells us our minutes. The hour, which is way down here at the bottom of the list, our hour hand is the short hand. The short hand, and whatever number it's pointing to, that's the number that we say first. So right now, this is pointing to the 2. So because this is the hour hand, we say it's 2 o'clock. If it was pointing to something else, this time it's pointing to the 10, so it would be 10 o'clock. Okay, so we have our hands. We have our two vocabulary words that go with hand. We know what o'clock means. Now, let's go back to these two words, noon and midnight. We learned those very quickly in our math lessons too. Noon and midnight are tricky because they look identical. This means both the hour hand and the minute hand are straight up and down on our clock, and they're on top of the 12. They're on top of the 12. So if it is noon, it means it is 12 o'clock. Yes, but it means it is lunchtime in the middle of the day when we're gobbling down our yummy sandwiches and chips and yogurt. But if it is midnight, it is in the middle of the night. when all of us are snug like a bug in our beds, and the only thing that's awake are raccoons and possums. So midnight means in the middle of the night, and noon means in the middle of the day. Now, moms and dads, we did not learn the meanings of AM and PM in kindergarten, but that is one of the first things that you will touch on when you get to time in first grade. And I taught first grade for 3 years, so I remember. So they will start to see things on their papers where they will have to identify a picture that has like the sun coming up. Is this AM or PM? Things like that. So they will start to learn the differences between those. But in kindergarten, we just learned these basic vocabulary right now. Okay, let's look at these next vocabulary words, and then we're going to do some examples that go with them. This one is 30. 30, if you'll see on our flower clock, our 30 is way down here at the bottom. And what does the 30 represent? Well, because it is right underneath the 6, it's going to represent the 6. So let's look on our teaching clock here. So this minute hand, can you see the 30 is underneath the 6, just like it is on our flower clock. If we put our minute hand on the 6 and we move our hour hand to another number, we're still going to say the shorthand, the hour hand, we're still going to say that number first. But now, instead of saying o'clock like we would when it is on the 12, it's moved all the way to the 6. So now we say it's called 30. Now, why do we call it 30? Well, remember, when it's up here, this is a brand new hour. So see, this is 2 o'clock. This is a brand new hour. And you know what? It could very well be 2 o'clock in the afternoon right now. How funny is that? Well, 30 minutes is going to go by to make it 2:30. Well, 30 minutes is from this number all the way to this number. We count by fives. We've already done all of this in class. This is just a review. And we're going to go halfway around the clock. So 30 minutes is half of an hour. So do you guys remember doing that? This is one of the lessons that you guys did such an amazing job on. You did super, super good. Okay, this is the very last lesson that we did together as a class before we had to close down school for the virus, and this was the quarter. This is our vocabulary quarter. Now, we're not talking about the quarter that's the money. It is the same name, but it means something a little bit different. Remember my hot pink clock that I had a couple of years ago? This fell off the wall and broke. And I discovered that you can write on this clock. So I have been writing on my clock with my marker. And I'm going to show you. Now remember, when we did an hour and a half hour, I showed you how to do it. And we just drew a line straight down. Do the best I can. So there's my straight line down the clock in my black line. So this is 30 minutes and this is 30 minutes. Remember, each one of those is a half. It's like our pizza. We always use pizza as an example. This is half of the pizza and your half the pizza had pepperoni. My half the pizza had mushrooms because that's my favorite pizza. Well, to make quarter hours, you have to do little increments of 15 minutes. So we're going to draw a line right down the center. My marker's not cooperating with me. So now we have our pizza divided into 4 pieces, 4 sections. From the 12 o'clock, from the 12 into the 3, this is 15 minutes. This is called 1 quarter. From the 3 to the 6, this is also 15 minutes. It's called 1 quarter. I bet you can guess what the next one is. From the 6 to the 9, 15 minutes. It's also called 1 quarter. And would you be shocked if I said from the 9 back to the 12 where we started was 15 minutes? 1 quarter. So, moms and dads, when they get into the upper grades, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, they will start to put the correlation together that 4 quarters makes $1, 1 whole, 4/4 of an hour, that kind of thing. But it's a little bit too above their scan right now that they can do. But they wanted us to get the base started in kindergarten. So we have whole hour, we have half hour, and now we do 15-minute increments. So we had taught this lesson. We had done a couple of days of lessons of a 1/4 hour, because my clock had already been drawn on like this when I brought it home. So I erased it, made it clean to draw on it again today. So 15 minutes, when we count by fives, when we do 15-minute increments. You will see a little bit of these 15-minute increments on some of the math papers in the next couple of folders. You have 2 folders left. So you have 4 weeks worth of work left for kindergarten. I know that's so crazy that it's almost already over. But you will see this, and I wanted to give you a basis of just a reminder. They've already had a lesson on it. I just am afraid that they have forgotten the 1/4 hour because it was the last thing we covered. Use your watches at home, because you can always, pull the little thingy out and mess them up and then fix it back to the time. Show them the difference between digital and the analog and things like that, and give them those words and let them learn things, because they're going to pick it up. They picked up hour and half hour very quickly. Moms and dads, you're going to do a great job. I wish that we all could have our little clocks in our hands and we could show each other and help each other like we do in class all the time. But for now, I hope this video helps. If you need any help, if you have any questions, just give me a ring. I love you. Mwah!